Don't move to Michigan before knowing these 10 things about Michigan winters. Thinking about moving to Michigan and you want to learn more about Michigan winters. Well, in this video, we're going to give you 10 things to know about Michigan winters before moving here to Michigan. Before we jump into things, I want to introduce myself. My name is Matt Talbot. My team and I help people just like you every single day move here to Michigan, and we absolutely live for it. We have a team of realtors ready and able to help people move to the state, and we help them every single day. We work with tons of out-of-town buyers from all over the country. Right now, we have New York and North Carolina and Florida and California and Chicago and Texas as well, just off the top of my mind, of people moving here to Michigan. So, Michigan winters. If you're moving somewhere that's definitely a southern state that doesn't have winters, or maybe you're moving from somewhere that does have winters and you want to learn a little bit more about Michigan winters, then this video is for you. We want to give you 10 things to consider and to know before moving here to Michigan regarding the winter. Coming in at number 10 on our list, and that is investing in layers. So as you can see today, I have a long sleeve on, and I got this light jacket, light sweater, whatever you want to call it. I have a couple different layers, and so this is like fall time, so I have this weird day where, like, today I'm gonna be cold in the morning. I think it's gonna get up to like low 50s in the afternoon, and so you start your day, 6-7 o'clock, whatever time you're starting your day, and you're out and about. It's a little chilly in the morning, then it warms up, and so if you have a big sweater on, a big coat on all day, you're gonna be hot. So you need to have a lot of different layers. We have seasons here in Michigan, so if you're moving from somewhere that doesn't have seasons, what my recommendation is definitely having a variety of different layers. Our closets here in Michigan should be bigger. Luckily, we have basements here in Michigan because you have a lot of storage, and a lot of people even put their winter clothes like in boxes and put them away in the summer, and vice versa, because you need so many clothes here in Michigan. Now, for a lot of people, they enjoy that. They like fashion and they want a bunch of different variety of things, but have a bunch of different layers. So during fall time, as an example, people really love fall here in Michigan, and one of the reasons is because you get like a sweater season, or maybe we call it hoodie season. Just throw on the hoodie and you're comfortable enough to go out and about, put jeans on for the first time of the year. So investing in layers is super, super important and something you must know before moving to Michigan and dealing with the winters. Coming in at number 9 on our list is having your car ready for Michigan winters. What do I mean by car ready? Well, there's a variety of different things you should consider if you're rolling into winter months here in Michigan and you haven't lived through a snowstorm, or if you haven't lived through Michigan winters, right? And number 1 is to consider is your tires. So having good tread on your tires is super, super important, and it's also very important for safety standards. It's pretty wild, actually. I think last year, the year before, I needed new tires, and I went out during the first snowstorm, and it was like such a wild experience, like how quickly you can go from having control to having no control once you lose that tread in your tires. So making sure you check the tread, go into the tire store if you don't know better, and understand, do you have enough tread going into the winter? It's going to be very, very important when driving in the snow. Additionally, stocking your car can be important for different reasons as well too. It sounds crazy, and I'm not trying to scare people away because this is sort of rare, but stocking your car and being able to get out if you're stuck in the snow is important, especially if you're driving a car that's rear-wheel drive or not all-wheel drive. Typically front-wheel drive is good. Obviously all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive always helps out, and rear-wheel drive doesn't really bode well in the snow. So if you drive a car like that, making sure that you understand what prepping your car means and getting ready for that. So sometimes if you drive a truck and it's rear-wheel drive, you really want to weight down, or even if you're driving a normal truck, people actually weight down the back of their truck in the winter. They put sandbags and stuff like that in the bed of the truck. It weighs the truck down and gives you a little bit more traction in the snow. Also, things to consider is if you ever were to get stuck in the snow, keeping water bottles in your car, potentially snacks. I mean, that's kind of like some doomsday thing, but if you live out in the country and maybe you're far off from where someone can come get you and AAA is not that easy to get to you, then I think it does make sense to have water or snacks in your car. Also, dressing appropriately, I think, is very, very important. It sounds Sorry, I said that weird. It sounds a little bit crazy, but, there could be times where you slide off the road and you get stuck off the road on the side of the highway and you're sitting there for a little while. So you don't want to just run to your car in a t-shirt in the middle of the winter and, run to the store or jump on the expressway thinking that nothing will happen, because there's a potential it will. It's very, very rare. I am 35 years young. I can't think of a time where I was stuck on the side of the road for multiple hours on end or anything like that, but it can happen, and being prepared will be very beneficial. This is being prepared at home. What do I mean by prepared at home? Well, if there's a snowstorm coming to town, making sure you're stocked up on food and groceries and water and all that stuff for a couple reasons. It's rare in Michigan, or at least in southeast Michigan, definitely different up north, but in southeast Michigan, we're completely snowed in, you can't go anywhere. That doesn't happen that often, so it's not like this doomsday thing to prepare for. However, sometimes there's 3 inches of snow, 4 inches of snow, 6 inches of snow plus. You could definitely get out and about, but maybe you don't want to until the road's clear. Maybe you don't want to get up and deal with, shoveling your way to the car. It's Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and, the roads haven't been plowed yet, and you got to deal with all that stuff, right? So it is difficult to get around when there's a good amount of snow, and so you might not be completely snowed in. However, you might not be amped and excited to get out and about on certain days when it does snow quite a bit in Michigan, or maybe it's just icy or rainy or whatever. So preparing for that is a benefit. Additionally, it's almost like a fun thing to do, right? We have a snowstorm coming, or we know the weather's not going to be good. Gearing up on your popcorn, having a movie that you want to run on Netflix or whatever and be ready to rock with it is almost like a day in and something to look forward to, especially when it's snowing or when it's very dangerous to drive on the roads here in Michigan. So a lot of people, I think, appreciate that in Michigan. We appreciate a little bit of hibernation. So preparing yourself at home and making sure you're doing what you can to be prepped for a nice indoor day is very, very important. But making sure that there's things ready for them to do. You have games prepared. Things are good for the indoors, or preparing for outdoors, right? Having your snow gear all geared up, ready for sledding and different stuff like that as well too. Also, another way to prepare is for power outages. Again, fairly rare overall, depending on where you live. Some power grids are better than others, of course, but if there's a big ice storm is usually when we lose power more than a snowstorm. So sometimes we have what's called freezing rain in Michigan, if you're not from Michigan, where we have a rainstorm coming in and the weather changes so fast where it goes from a little bit warmer to a little bit colder and everything sort of freezes. So rain can turn into sleet and eventually can actually freeze, and everything goes from drippy to frozen. And what happens when it starts dripping is you get these icicles all over the place, and that's where a lot of power lines do get torn down because there's a lot of weight on them. It is absolutely gorgeous sometimes when there's an ice storm, but it's very, very dangerous and is one of the scariest times to live in a northern state, because it can get slippery and it can get dangerous, and most importantly, there's a lot of power outages. Not only are there power outages, but it gets cold with no power, right? You have no heat. So being prepared for it, specifically if you're at risk, maybe you're an older person or whatever, making sure you're prepared for power outages, having the blankets ready, having potentially a generator if you need that, and just being stocked up on food and water and all that stuff in case you do need it. Again, this is doomsday stuff. It's very rare. We're not experiencing power outages and major storms all the time, but it will happen a couple times a year. But it can happen a couple times a year in many areas where you could experience some power outages, or you could experience days where it's hard to get out of the house. So being prepped for it is very, very important. Generators go a long time. Fresh water is very, very important. Ways to cook food, and again, ways to stay warm can go a long way in the winter if you do have a power outage. Coming in at number 7 on our list, lucky number 7. And why it's lucky is if you're lucky enough to do so, a great way to prepare for Michigan winters is to get away. So many people here in Michigan, they're what's called snowbirds. They live here in the summer and they take off in the winter. They go down to Florida or Texas or Arizona or somewhere warm for the winter. That's a great way to prepare for the winter as well too. I am an advocate, if you're privileged to do so, to be able to take vacations, to gear your life around taking vacations in the winter. I think Michigan seasons are awesome. The fall is great. The spring is awesome. The summer is great. The winter can be a little bit long. So I'm of the recommendation of taking some of those long vacations or longer vacations in the winter months. It's great to get away. You kind of break up the winter a little bit, and it doesn't get so daunting and long for a lot of different reasons. When I was a kid, sometimes I'd get a little bit jealous because some of my friends would come back super tan after certain vacations, and I would be freezing all winter, and I'd be like, man, you came back tan, you got a little warm. So anyway, if you are privileged enough to have the ability to escape, go ahead and do so. Do that vacation in the winter. Highly, highly recommended at lucky number 7 on our list. list. If getting away was our lucky number 7, then number 6 is almost our devil side of the coin, and that is stocking up lights or preparing for a lot of dark days. What I mean by that is the winters are long, and because of daylight savings and the shorter days in the northern states here, right, we have a lot of dark days, right? There's a lot of days where you go to work in the dark, you leave work in the dark, and that's sort of how the winter is, okay? So being prepared for that is very, very important. I think prepping your house accordingly, getting natural light in your home is a big one, you know, having all your light bulbs ready to go, and coming up with different ways to expose yourself to light when given the availability. So if we have a nice sunny day here in Michigan, even in the middle of the winter, try to plan to get out and about. I think it's super important. Northern states, depression is a thing. I think if you're, you know, in dark, gloomy days all day long, which isn't every day in Michigan, but there can be sprints of that in the wintertime. Being prepared for it and being optimistic about it is very, very important, and not just staying at home in the dark and depressed and all that stuff. So I think it's very, very important to expose yourself to natural light, be prepared for it, open up those windows, get some sunshine in the house when available, turn on those lights, brighten up your day a little bit, and also make sure you have a close friend nearby to stay in touch with so you can keep those positive vibes flowing even in the winter time. Coming in at number 5 on our list, there's actually 2 pieces to 5. Number 1 is get yourself a nice shovel. And number 2, if you're a homeowner with a big driveway and you have the affordability to do so, get yourself a snowblower. So when you think that you're done shoveling in Michigan, you are not, okay? A lot of people get up, you know, you get 3-4 inches, you want to clear off the driveway first thing in the morning, and you don't check the weather, and then by the time you're done clearing it off, it starts snowing again, you have another 2-3 inches. So there is some strategy associated with this. Some people, you want to do a couple different sprints, right? You want to do 3 inches at a time. You don't want to do the 6 inches all at once because it's very, very daunting and difficult to do so. If you are at risk, you have heart problems, you're older, you're maybe a little bit out of shape, you definitely don't want to hand shovel all that heavy snow, especially when it starts to melt a little bit and gets heavier. You don't want to shovel that all at once. So being thoughtful about shoveling, being thoughtful and available to shovel or snow blow depending on your day is very, very important. So if you're going into home ownership, you need 1 of 2 things. You need a shovel or a snowblower, or actually a third, you need a neighbor kid or someone to come do your driveway for you, right? You got to make sure to keep the snow off the driveway, keep the snow off the walk. So it is something to get into. Now, the positive side of things is it's also a workout. So shoveling your snow, taking care of the snow, even snow blowing can be a little bit of a workout for you. So maybe in those winter months, you don't have to run to the gym as much, right? You're taking care of that snow. Also, keeping salt on hand is very, very important. You want to salt your walk and make sure that things stay clear so that you don't slip later on. Something to note is if you are purchasing a house and you live in a subdivision or in a city, you're responsible typically for your driveway and also the sidewalk in front of your home. So that's very, very important when you're going to purchase a home here in Michigan, is that understanding what that looks like and understanding what you're getting into. So if you live in a condo, more often than not, your condominiums, they actually take care of that for you. It's covered by the HOA. Someone comes out and does the walk for you in the driveway, so you don't have to deal with it as much. So if that's for you, maybe you consider a condo over a single family home. But for the most part, if you're living in a subdivision, you have to take care of the sidewalk or pay someone to take care of the sidewalk for you. So something to keep in mind. Also, it creates a little bit of neighborly love, right? Are you willing and able to keep your front yard clean? Are you supportive to your neighbors? Sometimes if you're a really, really, really nice neighbor, you actually do the houses next to you, maybe across the street, or the people that you like around you. If you're out doing the snow anyway, you go ahead and shovel or plow for them or snow blow for them out of courtesy. So it can be a very neighborly love thing to do, but don't forget to take care of those sidewalks if you do end up purchasing a home here in Michigan. Coming in at number 4 on our list of things to know before moving to Michigan regarding Michigan winters, and that is going to be lake effect snow. So why this is important if you're moving to the state. Maybe you're considering different areas, different parts of town, maybe even different parts of the state. And if you are looking into that, understanding lake effect snow can be very, very important for you when deciding what area to live in. What do I mean by lake effect snow? What happens is when you have a big lake, right, it's a big open area. There's no trees or mountains or anything to really block the weather, and so the weather can really pick up. Additionally, you're pulling up all that water from the lake when it comes to storms here in Michigan. So what happens is if you're on that lakefront or close to a shore, you get a lot more snow. A lot more snow builds up. There's a lot more precipitation in those areas. So specifically, if you're on the west side of the state, all the way up the west side of the state, there's tons of lake effect snow from Lake Michigan. So if you live in a city like Holland or even Grand Rapids, or if you go over to even potentially Kalamazoo is pretty far in, but anything all the way up and down the west side of the state, you're going to get a significant more amount of snow than other places in the state if you're close to the shore there, if you're close to Lake Michigan. So lake effect snow is a thing. So if you're thinking about different areas and snow is not for you and you don't want to be buried in piles of snow, then definitely don't live on Lake Michigan. Now, the flip side of Lake Michigan is absolutely gorgeous. Even in the winter, in my opinion, I think it's gorgeous on that side of the state. And the winters are awesome, but the summers are fantastic. So there's pros and cons, but just understand lake effect snow is real. I'm talking feet of snow throughout the year, multiple feet at given times. There's a lot of drift when it comes to lake effect snow. It just builds up, moves around, lots of wind, lots of weather. Prepare for that if you're living on the lake itself. Before we dive into number 3 on our list, please hit subscribe and tap for notifications for more videos just like this. So number 3 of 10 things to know before moving to Michigan about the winter, and that is going to be winter does not always mean winter. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's a saying in Michigan. I don't know if it's in other states or not, but it's definitely here in Michigan. And they say, if you don't like the weather in Michigan, wait 5 minutes. It's like a running joke because throughout the year, the weather can change so drastically at any given time. It's kind of hard to keep up with, which is why I started with layers earlier in this list as far as layers of clothing, because you got to try to keep up with it. It's hard to a lot of times because it changes so fast. You can have a day that's literally snowing and 70 the same day sometimes. So, but in winter, it doesn't always mean winter. You got to prepare for it, especially in October, November, December specifically, and then really when you move into spring as well too. So you get into, March, April, May, it's just very like hit or miss. Like you could have a couple days in the 75s, a couple days in 25s. It's bouncing all over the place. So understanding that winter isn't always winter is very, very important. You could get a day in the middle of the winter, it's been 20 degrees all week, and all of a sudden you wake up, it's 45 degrees. It is very situational. So having a good weather app, understanding what the weather is going to be that day, understanding what to wear for the day is very, very important. I can't tell you, growing up in Michigan and being in Michigan my whole life, how often you see someone that wore shorts on a freezing cold day, or the reverse. You got a big heavy sweater on because you woke up in the morning, it was cold, and by the time the afternoon hit, it was 65 degrees out. So understanding what the weather looks like, preparing for it. For me, like this time of year in the fall and definitely in the spring, I'm throwing sweaters and different layers in the back of my car, so if I leave with a t-shirt, I have something prepared for in the winter. So winter doesn't always mean winter. If you don't like the weather here in Michigan, just wait 5 minutes and you might have something different. So 2 more items on our list, and please stay for the end because, of course, I saved the best for last. You got to stay for the surprise. Before I get into that, coming in at number 2 on our list is being prepared for people to complain about the weather. Okay? If you're moving to Michigan, if you're from somewhere else, you're not used to it. I think this is a Midwest thing. I don't think it's just a Michigan thing, but it's constantly talking about or complaining about the weather. So in the winter, it's too cold. There's snow. It's too gray. There's this, there's that. And then in the middle of the summer, people be like, oh, it's so darn hot, So it's just a thing that we do in the Midwest. I don't know if it's other places or not. It's definitely here in the Midwest, and it's definitely here in Michigan. We just complain about the weather. It's like something to do. It's so bad that I try not to talk about the weather because everyone talks about the weather so much. I try to be a little bit different, but it's the most natural thing to do growing up in Michigan is just complain about the weather. It's rainy. It's hot. It's cold. It's nice. It's this, it's that. Or when it is nice, you better be careful. It's nice. Winter's coming, so you better enjoy it while you can. It's always something about the weather. Like I said, if you don't like the weather in Michigan, wait 5 minutes. I mean, there's a million different sayings like that here in Michigan. So if you are not prepared for people in Michigan to complain about the weather or talk about the weather in different aspects, most of the time complaining, then Michigan might not be for you. Be prepared. And I think that's across the Midwest. Maybe it's other places in the country, but definitely here in Michigan, people are going to complain about the weather. Coming in at number 1 on our list, drum roll please, number 1, save the best for last, the moment you've been waiting for, and that's Michigan Wonderlands. So listen guys, there's a lot of cons about living in Michigan when it comes to winters, and there's a lot of pros. Actually, on our license plate say Winter Wonderland. That's a Michigan license plate. It is gorgeous. There's a lot of benefits of Michigan winters, without a doubt. You could do skiing, you can do snowboarding, you can do snowmobiling, you can go sledding, you can build snowmen, you can do snow angels, you can do cross-country skiing, you can do ice skating. I mean, there's so many things to do in the winter, and there's so many days where it's absolutely gorgeous. So for all the cold, gray days and all the weather that you have to deal with, there's a lot of days where you walk outside in the Michigan winter and it's bright and snow and everything's covered. I mean, it's like living in a snow globe. It's beautiful. It's super, super enjoyable, and there's a ton of pros with that. Additionally, I think there's even more pros with having seasons. When we go through those dark days and we go through those gray days in the winter, you really do appreciate the sun coming out. You really do appreciate the summer, the spring, the fall. I think people in Michigan are built tough. They deal with the winters and they appreciate the good a little bit more, although we are complaining about it quite a bit when it comes to the weather changes. I really think when it's all said and done, we're built tough and we appreciate it. So understand, Michigan is and always will be a winter wonderland. My name is Matt Talbot. My team and I help people just like you every single day move here to Michigan, and we absolutely live for it. If that is you and you're looking to move to Michigan, hit the Calendly link here in YouTube, set up a consultation. We'll set up a conversation today.